Their names were Bill and Helen Mason. The words he has written down tell a tale almost too fantastic to believe. This is what was found, written in the diary. The entries end on the day the man was found dead. We begin at March 3rd, 1938. Today, Helen and I came across one of the most delightful, old, southern mansions. We decided to stop and take a look around this delightful place. Helen has wanted to take some pictures. Although there was nobody home, we felt that no one would mind us taking a look around the place. We both felt it was a shame that the owners let the place get so dilapidated and run down. It had probably been beautiful back in its day. After taking some pictures of the house from the outside and the front, I noticed a strange building at the back of the house. So, we walked back there to take a look. The grounds at the back were more shabby than the front. The building at the back didn't seem so run down. In fact, it was in remarkably good condition. It looked like it had been built a lot later than the house was. If I had to guess, it couldn't be no more than 20 years or so old. It didn't have any windows and was made of stone, gray stone. Helen noticed that the padlock on the door had been broken. So naturally, our curiosity got the better of us, and we decided to take a look inside. The massive heavy iron door swung open reluctantly. We stepped inside. Although there were no windows, light seemed to enter the structure through a skylight in the ceiling. The cold, damp, musty air chilled our bones. There was a large stone block in the middle of the floor, right where the light was coming down from the skylight. That was when we realized the building was a mausoleum, and the stone case on the floor was a sarcophagus, a stone coffin. Although there was nothing else in there, it felt strangely crowded, as if there were things there that we couldn't see. Helen took out her camera. She wanted to get a picture of the sarcophagus. All of a sudden, we heard a man yelling at us.
Hey, what are you two doing in there?
We're sorry. We noticed the lock was broken. We came in to just have a look.
You shouldn't have done that.
We didn't mean any harm.
He won't like it.
Who's he?
The thing that sleeps in that stone coffin. You didn't notice the writing over there on the door as you came in, did you? Oh, that's a shame, 'cause you don't know what you was getting into. I don't understand. We weren't trying to steal anything. That don't make no difference. He doesn't care what your reasons were. Who's he? They called him Mr. Thomas when he was living. They call him the Death That Walks now that he's dead. People around here see him in all the time, mainly at night. It's because he's dead. But they see him walking. I know, because I've seen him myself.
Helen rolled her eyes. I think we better go, Bill.
You don't believe what I'm telling you. That's all right with me. I don't care what you believe. But you listen to what I'm saying now. If I was you, I'd get away from this place as fast as I could. Not just this place, but here town. This part of the country.
Why is that?
You want me to tell you a story? Alright. Old Mr. Thomas came from some place in Europe. I say old, but he really wasn't old. Just seemed that way. He bought the house and grounds here and had them all cleaned up till the place looked like it was brand new. Then he started building this here building. There was something funny about Thomas. Something in his eyes that made you frightened of him. His eyes, they looked like the eyes of a dead man. He didn't act like anyone I ever knew. He was always talking about death, always telling me how he could come back after death. I was the caretaker then, just like I am now. After this building was completed, I used to watch him at night. He'd come out here. It seemed like he was in some sort of trance. He'd stay out here for hours. And when he'd come back to the house, his eyes would glisten and shine, so you couldn't hardly look at him. A week before he died, he told me that as long as I lived, I was to take care of this place. Because if I didn't, he'd come back and kill me. And then he died. Just like that. He was put in here, in this here coffin. One night, about 10 months later, when the moon was full, I heard a noise. And when I came out to look, I saw the door to this place opening, and him come out in the moonlight. I could hear his footsteps, something queer and dragon-like. Then he turned around, and I could see in his face, in the moonlight, pale and pasty and sick-looking. Those eyes of his seemed like two burning coals of fire. He seemed to be looking at me. I heard him say, "They have disturbed me, and the moon has awakened me. I shall follow them." That's what he said. I heard him, just as plain as you're hearing me. And then he vanished into the night. Towards morning, I heard his footsteps again. I heard that big iron door closing, and I knew he was back. The next day, I heard Ralph Commons died the night before, screaming something about not meaning to go into the mausoleum. I knew who'd killed him. This had happened again and again for the last 10 years since he's been dead. Folks around here say he'll follow you wherever you go if you come inside here. Why haven't you been killed? Well, because he needs me. He ain't gonna kill me. But if I was you, I'd get out of this part of the country just as soon as I could.
A shiver ran down my spine, and Helen and I turned to leave. We'd better get going.
I wish I'd been here when you came.
As we walked out, we looked up and saw the writing above the door. It said, "If you enter here, into the realm of death, I shall follow you and bring him with me." March 3rd. Later. I sit here and write these words. It is late, and the moon has risen full in the sky. Helen is standing by the window, gazing out. For some reason, I am frightened. Yet I know that a few months from now, I will laugh at the memory of my fright. However, in the morning, I do believe that we will leave this place. Helen is thrilled. She doesn't believe the caretaker's story, but she is concerned, just as I am. It was a beautiful night. Helen and I looked out the window. The moon was so big and full. All of a sudden, we noticed a man standing on the street below. He was looking straight up at us and pointing at us. His face was pale and pasty looking, and his eyes were like two bright coals of fire. March 3rd. Still later, the man down in the street, whoever he was, left after about 10 minutes. He gave us quite a fright. If I had felt any doubts as to whether we should leave this place, they've all been dispelled now. I don't know what to believe. Helen has just gone to bed. I think I'll do the same. March 4th, 1938. As we were settling down to sleep last night, we heard footsteps pacing back and forth. They were coming from the room just above us. I called down and complained to the clerk at reception. He informed us that the room above ours was unoccupied. A short time later, we left the hotel. We merely got into our car and drove all night and all day. We are stopping now at a motel almost 1,000 miles away. It's reassuring to know that he couldn't possibly follow us. I'm exhausted. I will go to bed and get an early start in the morning. March 5th, 1938. Last night was not very comforting either. We heard the same footsteps outside of our room, and Helen let out a scream. She claimed she saw the man's face outside the window. This morning when I went to pay the bill, the motel owner said that a strange, pasty-faced man had been in earlier and told him to tell me that he would follow me. March 11th, 1938. It's impossible to get any material together that will help me in my work. Everywhere we go, he is there. March 16th, 1938. This morning, the clerk at the front desk told us that a strange man came in and left a message for us. He said it was okay for us to go on ahead because he was going to follow us. March 22nd, 1938. He left a message with the lady at the desk telling us that he would be in touch. April 7th, 1938. He left another message at the desk. The manager had the nerve to ask me if he was a friend of ours. April 18th, 1938. Another disturbing night without any sleep. More footsteps from the hall outside. April 29th, 1938. When we went to go check out this morning, I asked the clerk if there were any messages. He said a strange man in a white suit came by and left a message stating he would follow us. May 15th, 1938. I don't know what to do anymore. We can't stop for the night without him showing up. The only sleep we get anymore is in the car while on the road. May 30th, 1938. Helen and I argued again today. Since we've been on the run, that seems to be all we ever do. She wanted to go home. I fear that if we go home, he will stalk us there too. She felt it was the only place left to turn. I didn't know what to say. So, we left for home. June 30th, 1938. We arrived home this evening. I called my friend Gary as soon as we got home. He said he'd be out within the hour to see us. June 24th, 1938. Gary wasn't able to help us in any way. Truthfully, I didn't expect any help. I was hoping he would be able to offer some suggestion as what to do. However, last night was the first night in months that we haven't been aware of his presence. Maybe, just maybe, Helen was right. Perhaps he won't follow us here. July 3rd, 1938. We have not seen or heard anything unusual since we first came home. I feel like a man who has been given a new lease on life. July 10th, 1938. Still nothing. August 19th, 1938. For the past 2 months, a feeling of peace and security has enveloped the house. Helen and I have been able to go around with no sense of danger or dread, but last night, that feeling was shattered. Gary had come over for dinner. It was almost 10 o'clock. We heard footsteps upstairs. He's back, I gasped. I asked Gary to come upstairs with me to investigate. Helen stayed downstairs and waited anxiously for us to return. We cautiously made our way upstairs. The footsteps sounded like they were coming from the guest bedroom. Gary and I opened the door and peered inside. It was empty. All of a sudden, we heard a scream. It was Helen. We ran back downstairs and found Helen sitting in an armchair. Her eyes were as wide open as ever, and there was a look of unimaginable horror on her face. She was dead. August 23rd, 1938. We buried Helen today. I sit here in this empty house, writing this. I know that soon he will come for me too. I write this in the hope that someone will find it, read it, and maybe understand my death. It's lonely here. Yet, suddenly I have the feeling that I am not alone. Someone is here with me. He is here. In this room. I can see him. I can feel him. I'm afraid to turn to meet him. Those eyes of his burning into the back of my skull. Yet I must. I pray that someone reads this. Perhaps he will. Epilogue. The diary ends here. I have read the manuscript in full. I can't shake the feeling of creeping horror that runs through these pages. The August 23rd entry was the last that he ever made. The man was found dead in the very room he wrote about in his diary. He too had a look of unimaginable horror on his face. The coroner couldn't determine a cause of death, but you and I know what killed him. The death that walks. Number 2. The neighbor. I'd had enough. My neighbor had woken up my baby for the last time. I banged on his door. I had to pound loudly since his god-awful music was drowning it out. He opened the door. I barged in. Partygoers were curious as to who this deranged man was. Without saying anything, I barged into his kitchen and saw a carving knife lying on a cutting board. I grabbed it and stuck it into the bastard's eye socket. The stunned crowd did not know how to react. Smiling, I hit the off switch on the stereo on my way out. The hose. Once I enter the garage, I can't see a damn thing. The overhead light has been out for years. Right now, it's proven to be more than just inconvenient. My backyard is on fire. Every second lost looking for the hose is more chance that my house is next. As I hurriedly try to sift through the dark wreckage, I spot it. I grab it. It's more scaly and heavier than I remember. I rush back to the door with it. As my vision becomes more enlightened, I see fangs protruding from the head, ready to enter my wrist. Penitent. Kill it. Kill it now. I was stunned. I couldn't move. Think. Do something. I'd always been grateful for my silver spoon upbringing. Until now. Had I underwent chaos in any form at some point in my past, it would have served me to react in this present situation. Instead, I was useless, impotent. My eyes remained stuck in fixation at the scene that wouldn't cease to unfold. Save me. my wife cried. I couldn't. After I finished devouring her, I realized my lack of action was what would truly haunt me for the rest of my days, or seconds. Vanish. I dream that I am completely vaporized. I wake up. I thank God. I walk my aching body over to the sink. I look in the mirror and see that I have no nose. I scream. I wake up. A dream within a dream. That doesn't happen too often. Whew. I walk my aching body over to the sink. I look in the mirror and see that I have no head. I scream. I wake up. This can't be. I run to the sink. I look in the mirror and see that I have no body. I don't wake up. No limit. I go all in, the ultimate bluff. I have a 7 and a deuce. Nothing. The man to my left folds. Whew. 3 more to go. The woman folds. 2 more. The man across from me says, "I'll call." My soul is shocked. I just wanted to quickly win a couple hands so I could pay my rent. This man just ruined my life with those 2 words. No. Not gonna happen. The man starts to convulse. Blood begins to pour out of his eyes. Everyone screams. I'm the only one smiling as I scoop up everyone's chips. Narrative. I couldn't believe it. I'm only 3 pages into this book, and I'm realizing that the author is narrating everything that's happened in my life. This book is about me. I skim more pages. The time I fell off my bike, my divorce, breaking my foot. It's all in there. How could this be? I cringe when I turn to the last page and read what it says. After realizing this book was about him, the assigned demon grabbed Kevin by the leg to pull him down to hell where he always belonged. My leg starts to feel warm. Birthday party. I finish twisting the balloons and give it to the birthday boy. This doesn't look like a tiger, stupid clown. Where did your mom hire this doofus anyway? What kind of loser works as a clown? Even though these brats are 20 years younger, their words are hurtful. After years of constant mistreatment, I finally had enough. I grabbed the birthday boy and forcefully twist and knot his arms and legs, breaking all limbs in the process. He screams, the others shocked. His mom comes running. With a true unpained smile, I offer her son, saying, "Look, a pretzel." Destiny. My screams sound so localized. I grab my lighter from my pants and light it. There are only inches of space between me and the surrounding wood. How did I get here? I don't remember much, but I do know what the inside of a coffin looks like, and now feels like. I try to push the top. It doesn't budge. I see a red-orange light materializing beneath me. I squint to make out what the light resembles. I frown. I realize what it is. The bottom of the coffin releases me, and I quickly descend into the fire. Cleanser. After eating lunch at my desk, my hands were a mess. I didn't want to go down that long hallway just to wash my hands. I grabbed some tissue and wiped. Still dirty. I looked in my top drawer. There was a container of clear liquid. I grabbed it, opened it, and took a sniff. Smelled like hand sanitizer. I poured some on my hands and began rubbing. The coolness was nice, at first, until it was too cold. Freezing. My hands turned black. Frostbite. I screamed in pain and shock as my hands disintegrated right before my eyes. Inescapable. It all began like any other chore. I went looking for a shirt in the walk-in closet. Suddenly the door slammed shut. I don't live with anybody. I try opening the door.
It won't budge. I tried breaking it down. It's wood. It should break. It doesn't. What the hell is going on? I began to feel claustrophobic. If this was your typical horror movie, this kind of situation would end with a monster killing me or me being able to open the door at some point. Neither occurs. Instead, I sit here. It's been days. I'm beyond dehydrated. Pure satisfaction. I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to let you go. I sensed no remorse when I heard those words surge from her mouth. In fact, she looked almost pleased to say them. I don't know how to react to this, I admitted. Well, you have until the end of today to pack up your things. Feel free to sort out your emotions for the next 3 hours. That was 3 hours ago. I sorted my feelings out all right. I don't know why, but I couldn't help but lick the bloody tip of the blade. It was bitter, satisfying. The best haircut. This is the best haircut I've ever gotten. Thanks, Diane. Looks great. No problem. Have a good rest of your day. I get in my car and take one last look in the rearview mirror. Perfect. As I drive down the street, I feel an inclination to run over the man riding his bike in front of me. I do it. I laugh. That's not right. I feel something liquid drop down my neck. I touch the back of my head. I bring my hand back to the front of my face to see what looks like brain matter on my fingers. Hey there, listeners. I want to thank you for tuning in for our conclusion of 99 Stories of Blood on the Wall. Make sure you're here on Monday, especially themed to welcome us into the new year. See you in the darkness. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast if you like what you hear. Now available on Google Podcasts, iTunes, CastBox, Stitcher, and all your other favorite podcast apps.
And number 1. The Tale of the Teenage Boy. There was a teenage boy named Lorcan who said he wanted to be a vampire. Everyone thought he was just looking for attention. He didn't have any friends, and all of the kids in school were afraid of him. He was odd looking, and his head seemed too large for his body. He was unnaturally thin, and his eyes were sunken and had dark circles around them. His cheeks were hollow, and his skin was a deathly shade of pale. He dressed in black from head to toe. He wore a long black trench coat that resembled a cape. When the other kids were playing sports, Lorcan would be sitting in the corner of the schoolyard, engrossed in one of his books. He collected books about vampires, devil worship, and satanic rituals. He read each one over and over, feverishly underlining passages and taking notes. There were always strange rumors about him floating around the neighborhood. Some younger children claimed they had seen him murder a dog and drink its blood. Others said he would kidnap cats in the neighborhood and bring them home so that he could perform weird experiments on them. His parents were worried sick about him. His odd behavior unnerved them, and they didn't know what to do with him. They brought him to doctors and psychiatrists, but none of it did any good. One night, his mother found some of his books. When she realized they were about Satanism, she was worried and threw them in the garbage.
Lorcan didn't complain or protest, but when his parents went to bed, he crept downstairs and went outside to retrieve his beloved books from the trash. The next day, he made a big hole in the ceiling of his wardrobe. It was his secret passage and allowed him to crawl up into the attic unnoticed. He kept all his books there, safe from prying eyes. The attic became his secret place. He even constructed a makeshift altar and decorated it with satanic symbols, upside-down crosses, and crude drawings of the devil. One night, he broke into the local church and stole a silver chalice and some communion wafers. He brought them home and placed them on his altar. During the day, Lorcan was sleepy and lethargic, but at night, he would come alive. While his mother and father were asleep, he would creep around the house barefoot, trying not to make the slightest sound. Sometimes, he would creep soundlessly into their bedroom and stand over them, watching their peaceful slumber. One day, the teacher gave everyone in the class an assignment. They had to write an essay entitled, "When I Grow Up." The teacher asked if anyone wanted to read their essay out loud to the class, and Lorcan raised his hand. He stood in front of the blackboard holding a crumpled piece of paper and cleared his throat. "When I grow up," he began, "I want to be a vampire." The other kids rolled their eyes and giggled. Lorcan was so excited. The paper was shaking in his hands. "I want to sleep in a coffin," he continued. "I want to surround myself with death. I want to dedicate myself to evil and get revenge on all my enemies. I will surrender my soul to Satan and accept him as my Lord and Savior." "That's enough, Lorcan," the teacher interrupted him. Lorcan ignored her, and his voice grew louder. None of his classmates were giggling now. "I want to drink the blood of little boys and girls and feel it coursing through my veins. I want to sink my teeth into the softest flesh of my victims and feel their hot blood trickling down my throat." "Stop it, Lorcan," the teacher cried. "Sit down. I want to rip them open, pull out their insides, and feast on their entrails. I want to destroy every living thing. I want to burn the world. I want to kill everyone who made fun of me." The teacher lunged at him, snatching the paper out of his hands. Lorcan clawed at her and screamed like a mad thing. As she grabbed him by the neck and marched him off to the principal's office, he was yelling, "I want to be a vampire. I want to kill you all. I want to kill you all." Lorcan was suspended from school, and his parents had to meet with the teacher and the school principal. After that, everyone watched him like a hawk. Neighbors would pull their children off the street if they saw him coming. Rumors spread quickly about him, and nobody wanted anything to do with him. One day, a little boy who lived in the neighborhood went missing. His parents searched for him, but there was no sign of him anywhere. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The police were called, and they knocked on every door in the area, asking questions. One officer questioned Lorcan and noticed he was acting very nervous. The policeman had a bad feeling about the teenager, and he insisted on speaking to his mother and father. Lorcan's parents let the policeman in and agreed to let him search the house. Lorcan grew even more nervous. The police officer searched Lorcan's room, but didn't find anything suspicious. Then, he opened the wardrobe and noticed a hole in the ceiling. When he poked his head up through the hole and peered into the attic, his eyes were greeted by a horrifying sight. Later, he would say it was the single most disturbing thing he had ever seen in his life. The dead body of a missing boy was hanging from the roof. His arms and legs were tied to the rafters of the attic in the shape of a crucifix. Beneath him was a satanic altar, surrounded by books on devil worship. On the altar was a silver chalice filled with blood. The policeman scrambled downstairs and raised the alarm. He shouted for his colleagues, and when he told them what he had seen, they began a desperate search for Lorcan, but the teenager was nowhere to be found. His parents had no idea where he was. Policemen on the streets swore they hadn't seen anyone leave the house. Nobody could find any trace of the teenage boy. The police were baffled. They were sure there was no way the boy could have escaped without being noticed. It was a complete mystery. Later on, one of the officers did recall witnessing something strange. He said that just after all the commotion had started, he thought he saw something fly out of one of the upstairs windows. It flapped its wings and disappeared into the night. He thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, but he could have sworn it was a large, black bat. This story was actually inspired by a real-life murder that happened in Ireland in 1973. A young boy named John Hargan went missing. When the police investigated, they began to suspect the teenage boy who lived next door. They searched his house, and in his attic, they discovered the dead body of the young boy. He had been tied to the rafters of the attic in a crucifixion pose. Underneath him, there was an altar, a silver chalice, and some satanic books. Of course, in real life, the teenage boy didn't turn into a vampire bat and escape. He was arrested and sent to jail for his terrible crime.
Thank you for listening, everybody. Really appreciate it. Make sure, if you have not yet, make sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure you're here next Wednesday at 11 p.m. for three brand new episodes from Season 2 of Eerie Tales from the Darkness podcast.